Let's get started today. Even though it's a small group, I think uh, I think hopefully you'll give me some feedback because you're about to hear about one of my most magical inventions ever. And I've said that about every invention I've made. And some of you probably don't know about it, most of my inventions, because most of them end up in the trash. But if you use the DAF widget or the fundraising report card, or you're using our core system, then sure, you're familiar with inventions here and there. But I really, really, really love this, and I hope I'm not overhyping it, but this is my favorite invention so far. And it's so simple, so simple. All right, so before we get into that, let's talk about Mastermind mixers, just the usual, what do you call this, housekeeping. Today, we're going to talk about what I call donor roadmaps. This is how you can help your supporters collaboratively develop pathways for mutual success. Okay. Before I get into that, just a quick reminder that if you're a MarketSmart customer, thank you, of course. But if you're involved with the Mastermind, what I should say is if you're a customer, you can invite anybody from your organization, from program staff and volunteers up to board members and leadership, to attend these Mastermind Mixer events. Of course, you'll get the recording afterward, and feel free to share that. If you're in the e-course, then thank you for doing that as well. You can feel free to share this meeting link whenever you get invited to this, and we'd be happy to have more people join us. I'd really love to grow these mastermind mixers, and if you could take like 30 seconds after the event to give us your feedback, because for the for the for the life of me, I can't figure out why we can't grow it further than 8 or 10 or 12 people each time. So I'm wondering what I'm doing wrong, or maybe we're just not getting the word out properly. So if you let us know your thoughts in the survey, that would be great. Last thing is, I'm always supposed to remind folks that if you subscribe to the e-course with Dr. James, it is an annual subscription. So if you don't want to have that yearly, let us know. But the e-course, remember, is one price is available, makes it available for every single person who's part of your cause. So I recommend sharing that with board members and leaders and program staff, whomever. Of course, oh yeah, we love referrals for MarketSmart. So if you can think of anybody who would think more highly of you for having referred them to us, please do. You could just email us or your customer success manager, or just share our link and invite them to click on the button to talk to us. We'll never be high pressure sales. If you've bought from us before, you know we are not a high pressure sales company. It's all collaborative and for your benefit. All right, so today we're going to talk about my magical invention, it's not an innovation, it's an invention, because I didn't come up with this out of the blue, but I am reorganizing some things here in the way folks work so that they optimize their performance. So I'm going to talk about these roadmaps versus what are traditionally known as donor plans, I believe, unless you've got other words for them. And then I'll give you an example of how to use them, or how to invite people to gain value from your development of them, so you can be more donor centric and accelerate the gift consideration process. Now, you probably heard me use the word magical probably twice already. I can't impress upon you enough how magical this tool is. It works, and it makes donors feel more trusting, more in control, and more willing to move forward in giving major gifts and bequests faster. I promise you. I'm seeing it in the training that I'm doing with a select group. Some friends at Salvation Army, St. Jude's, Grove City College, Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, and others have been engaging with me on the development and re-engineering of this operating system, if you will, for how to live your daily life as a fundraiser. And this has been the most magical tool, so magical that my lawyer said, you got to copyright it, which we actually just got the paperwork from the government that says it's copyrighted, but I didn't have time to like put a whatever we're supposed to do next to it. So I have to figure that out. But anyway, you can use this information. I don't see anybody creating a business on this idea, so I'm not worried about that. All right. Let's see. All right. So before I get into this magical invention, let's talk about the traditional process. The traditional process for working with would-be major donors, including planned giving donors, is highly focused on your organization, your leadership, what they want, and the activities that they want to see that you're doing. Just kind of, I can't see all of you, but sort of show of hands or kind of nodding. Has anybody had a boss who wants to know how many, visits and asks you're doing? Right? Yeah. Does anybody love reporting on that? Is anybody really enthusiastic about that and just like can't wait to write out another report about how many meetings and asks they've done? No? I can't imagine why. Well, because it's not really for you. It's not really for the donor. It's for your boss. And it's for the organization. It's for oversight to make someone else's hero story valuable to them. And that's not good. So the way it looks is usually we have what we call prospect identification. And that stage involves wealth screening or predictive analytics, and maybe some other means for identifying who you should include in your caseload. And then once they're assigned, then you go out and you try to reach those people, and then you have to qualify them because they're all merely identified, they're not qualified at first. So you have to go through that process of qualification. And if they're qualified, and frankly, you might do some cultivation before qualification, but either way, you're doing qualification and cultivation, and that can take time. Sometimes it takes years before you finally get to a solicitation. And then there's some fine tuning on your gift proposal, and finally they give, and then you go into stewardship. Does anybody feel this does not, or reflect, or I see some heads bobbing, so I guess this does reflect your life, right? Cool, thank you. Okay, so again, this is a very organization-centric methodology that organizations and consultants love to profess is the way you should work. And it's focused on activities, including calls, visits, meetings, and asks. What's missing from this? Anybody notice what's missing from this? I'll give you a hint. It starts with a D and ends with an R, and it's got two O's in it. And there's an N in the middle. Anyone? Yeah. The donor is not in this process at all. And sometimes, and I hate this, but sometimes leadership even tells you to just take the identified people and just go solicit them. When you meet with them, you finally get that meeting, just ask them to give. And that has a potential for calamity. It can work out also, but a lot of times you get what Dr. James calls go away gifts. Maybe he's not the only one. So you get you get a transactional gift, which is going to be exponentially lower dollar than a relationship-oriented, donor-centric partnership type of gift. I call these high-pressure drive-by solicitations or ambush asks. And I call them ambushes because I've been the recipient of this process. And I don't like it. I don't know donors that really do, except for the ones that are super busy and are like, okay, I know this is my time to give. Okay, I don't even want coffee. Like, let's just meet. Like, okay, I'll do the coffee, I'll give you the money, and then can I move on? I'll see you next year, you know? So Dr. James says transactional small gift metrics, which is these measurement of calls, visits, and asks, those are really transactional metrics. And I think that organizations do this because they're so used to their direct response vendors dealing with donors transactionally and using transactional metrics. So I think they just think, well, let's just apply those kinds of metrics to our high value major donors. But it doesn't transfer to large gift relational, what I call highly considered decisions. There's two types of giving. There's transactional and there's highly considered and more deliberate, relational. Now, David Lively, who actually just got promoted, now he leads like 250 people at Northwestern University. So congratulations to him. And he's deserves it. He wrote in his book, Visits, this measure of output is inadequate and outdated. Visits alone are meaningless. They fail to illustrate forward progress with any single prospective donor. Counting the number of visits does not reflect quality, just volume. And, if you're counting visits, you're really not in the advancement or development field. I mean, after all, we call this advancement and development because we're helping develop pathways for success. We're helping people move themselves forward through their own consideration continuum. That's why it's called advancement. And I think people sadly forget that or never learned it. So what I recommend is taking this traditional assignment and activity-oriented process, and let's reinvent it the MarketSmart way, the engagement fundraising way, right? So let's explore this a little further, and I promise you we'll get to the roadmap part. So prospect research staff will usually identify these folks through various means that we already discussed, and they'll assign them to you, and you'll get a whole bunch of names and people, and you'll get some reports and information about them, mostly from if not entirely, but mostly from quantitative data, not qualitative data. Now, if you know anything about MarketSmart, we're essentially the qualitative data company. We don't actually provide you with any of the quantitative data because the qualitative data, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak, the donor, is exponentially more valuable than the quantitative data. And that happens in any scientific realm. Qualitative data is always better. Nevertheless, they assign them to you, and then you have to go do this qualification. And just getting the meeting with people is hard enough. It could take 6 months or a year, or you may never get to actually talk to them, to qualify them. Now, this poses some challenges and some terrible costs for your operation. The challenges are that gift officers say, and you'll see, for the list of the assigned here, gift officers say, according to the research, that only 1/3, 37%, of the identified prospects that they've been assigned are truly qualified to be in their caseload. only 1/3. So that means that 2/3 of the assignments are false positives and wild goose chases, which take up your time, which costs your organization money. This is a drain on your operation. Number two is that miraculously, many fundraisers report that they got a call or they got a referral from somebody, and or a donor, a supporter found their way to them, or they met them at an event or something, and they close gifts from people who were never assigned, and bequests come over the transom from people who never even donated and weren't on your radar. So that sort of circumvents this whole concept of traditional assignment. And you're like, well, how do we find those people? And of course, that's partly what MarketSmart helps you do. But let's re-engineer this in a donor-driven way that's more engagement fundraising oriented. That's my phrase, my book title. And if you ever want that book, just let me know. We'll ship it to you. We'll give you the audio book. It's all free, PDF, digital or iPad or whatever. Okay. So with this renewed, reimagined process, re-engineered process, we help everybody win. We help your leadership get what they want. We help you get what you want, is a more pleasurable work-life experience and building relationships with donors, and the donors get what they want. So this means we've got to focus more on qualitative data instead of quantitative data, and we've got to allow for cultivation. In our case at MarketSmart, it's the automated cultivation that warms up people and allows them to self-qualify their desire to talk to you and their readiness, frankly, to talk to you. Because these big gifts, a lot of it has to do with the timing in an individual's life, which is qualitative data. You can't know the timing of someone's life. You can't know if there was just a grandchild born or the passing of somebody that left money to some. You just don't know these things. So by working a different process, you end up with a better giving experience for the donors, which also provides for exponentially larger gifts. So the idea behind all this is to optimize and make your operation more efficient and save on costs. So you're talking to more people who really want to talk to you. This makes you more effective and your staff more effective. It helps you raise more revenue at lower cost, less wild goose chases and all that, and ultimately drives less turnover because your staff is happy and they're doing their job and they're in the right seat, doing the right thing with the right people at the right time. Everybody's happier. All right, so here's the rub. It requires a multi-step process, which again, if you're a transactional leader, you don't like multiple steps. You just want someone to go out there and ask for money and bring home the bacon. But highly considered relational decisions require a multi-step process. Think about when you buy a house, when you take a big vacation, when you buy a car. It's not transactional, it's deliberate, it's highly considered, it's a high dollar item. You have to have preliminary qualification. In fact, if you've ever bought a house, you know that your real estate agent or the bank or whomever, the mortgage broker, is going to say, we've got to get you pre-qualified so that you can be ready to make a move on a house if you're really interested. But, and this happens in a lot of different realms. It's for some strange reason, I've never heard it done in the fundraising sector until I came along and said, this needs to be inserted into your operation. And again, many leaders don't want it because it seems to slow down the process. So preliminary qualification, that's essentially what we are at MarketSmart. We're like your preliminary qualification company. And we do that with the dashboard and with like the colors in the dashboard that show you that someone's recently engaged and they're showing readiness. Or they even now we have it that they will set up appointments with you if that's what you want. Like if you have our system, just let us know. We'll make sure that happens so you can have the most ready donors put themselves on your calendar. Readiness, timing, it's really important. Then after they're preliminarily qualified for your outreach and connection, then complete qualification can happen whereby the donor agrees to actually work with you. They assign themselves to your caseload. They opt in to collaborate with you rather than a prospect researcher. And look, they're well-meaning. I love them, but they don't provide you with what you really need, and they don't help supporters opt in to the process. So we want people to agree to work with you on crafting and developing a suitable donation in a way so they can move themselves forward as they see fit, advancement. And this donation needs to be in exchange for a valuable giving experience. You're not solicitors, you are facilitators, but you're actually experience providers. People will give amounts that are in relation to the value they see in the experience they're gaining. And you've got to make the experience of giving worth the size and the amount of the gift. Now, remember that value is in the eye of the beholder. So some people need very little value from you to make an enormous gift. Others need a substantial amount of value from you, and that can take time. Okay, still with me? Intrigued? All right, modernized fundraising process. Let's get into this. I'm going to break it down. And this is part of a program and a book, frankly, that I've been writing for the past 3 years. And a lot of these mastermind mixers, I've been testing out these concepts. And if you're one of my crash test dummies, I'll have to look at the list of who joined later, but thank you, because I'm working with folks at St. Jude, Salvation Army, Grove City College, Baltimore Symphony Orchestra, and some others have been the crash test dummies on this. And I'm looking for more, frankly. So if you'd like to go through a new training for free with me to implement a new operating system for your advancement operations, let me know. And if you qualify, I'll work with you on that. It's 5 meetings. Anyway, I've re-engineered the process and broken it down into these graphics and shapes. And the preliminary qualification involves 5 components, which I won't get into right now because that's essentially what our software does, and that's why our logo is there. And many of you already know that. It's basically we collect the qualitative data, and there's 5 key qualitative data points that we need to see before we say that somebody is prioritized and or outreach ready, let's say. The next is the one we'll focus on today, is about complete qualification. And there are 4 components, and that's why it's a square for that. And that's what we'll get into in just a second. When a supporter is completely qualified, they've told you explicitly that they want to work with you on the development and advancement through the process for giving, and they have opted in to be in your caseload, and it's clear as day to you and to them, and there won't be any ambush whatsoever. Once they agree to that, then you go through the caseload management process, which has 3 steps, very simply, which is why, what, how. And generally, you're not going to want to skip steps. Once they're in your caseload, you need to know and remind them about their why, which involves their values, their life story connection, and their desire for belonging or to help their community and such. That's the why. The what stage is what would you like to give to? And if you don't allow restricted giving at all, that's going to be a problem. You want to allow restricted giving. And what's amazing is most people, once they consider a restricted gift, often will assign some of it or all of it to be unrestricted, even after they went through the whole process of trying to make it restricted. If you invite them to consider doing that, by the way, like many donors, when they get to this point, they actually decide to make half of it unrestricted. Would you want to consider that at this point? It's okay if you keep it restricted, But in other words, save that till the end. And the last part, 3 stages of caseload management. So it's why, we talked about what, and then how. Then you get to how. Okay, so are you going to do a trust? Are you going to give, exchange real estate? Is it appreciated stock? What is, you get to the how. If you jump to the how first, usually people will recoil. So stay away from the how, because people don't want to think about how before they think about why and what. That's straight out of Dr. James' scientific research. So we talked about the traditional way, and I just want to replace the word solicitation with proposal before we move forward. And this is just another way of looking at this, is we're going to swap out caseload population, and we're going to kind of move the caseload population over. So you have your ad, and I'm going to do that again just to make sure you all see what's going on. This is the traditional way. Let's change it to be the new engineered way. We add in preliminary qualification and we move over and delay the caseload population until somebody says that they're completely qualified. And this may happen usually after they've been preliminarily qualified and have gotten some automated cultivation. Hopefully that means you're using our system, or you're doing it on your own to cultivate the relationship until they're ready for you to engage in complete qualification. All right, so this is powered by MarketSmart. It involves those 5 components. And then this step involves the 4 components, which I'm going to get into right now. But I feel, and other donors feel, especially one of my good pals now is named Lisa Greer, who wrote a book called Philanthropy Revolution. She's worth like $150 million, and she wrote a book on the donor experience and how she thinks it should change. I encourage you all to check it out. Lisa Greer, Philanthropy Revolution. She's got a new book coming out soon too. But this is a more fair, more effective, and more cost-efficient way to operate. And it increases donor lifetime value, reduces staff turnover, and drives ROI. So it also aligns with the donor's hero story, which I won't get into too deep, but if you're taking the e-course, this is a lot of what Dr. James talks about in the e-course. And it aligns what you do, your actions and activities, with where the donor resides in their consideration continuum, because you can't move it too fast, and you can't, and you certainly don't want to wait. But you don't want to pressure people, and you don't want to solicit them before they're ready, or propose that they give before they're ready. So the who kind of happens here with MarketSmart, and you could still do some prospect identification. Then you get to the a why, what, and how, and then another why. You enter, that's stewardship, where people will wonder, well, why should I ever give again? I mean, and that happens like the minute the money leaves their account and goes into your organization's account, they start thinking about that. Was this a good experience? Why would I consider doing it again, or referring my friends? Okay. So the beginning is this self-qualification stage. Then we want to discover motivations and gain alignment, build rapport, relationship, gain a deeper understanding, and come together to work together. Then your ask, and this is in Dr. James' course, your ask or your proposal and your roadmap, frankly, which I'm finally gonna get to in a second, it should reflect their why, what, and potentially their how. Don't leave that out, because the why is the motivation. The what drives desire. Finally, stewardship, you want to communicate recognition and express gratitude. Okay, so I think I've kind of beat this up pretty good, and I've done it several different ways so that you all get it, I hope. The last part before I get to the roadmap is that we want to think about developing strategies. We want to be strategic thinkers, not transactional ambushers and askers. We want to be strategic thinkers about where the donor is in the process, what they care about, why they care about it, and we want to take strategic actions. Strategic actions, not just actions. Sadly, I've heard too many fundraisers who actually just fill out their activity reports and half of it's made up. Like, what good is that doing anybody? And then we want to measure outcomes. And the outcomes should represent advancement, not your activity. It's where is the donor in this process? That's the outcome that we want to look at, and not just how much money they gave. So we'll probably get into that more in other mastermind mixers, but here's the complete process again. Pre-qualification for outreach through prioritization of some way using qualitative data from the donor. Complete qualification, so they opt into your caseload, and then caseload management. So let's talk about this complete qualification. I said it has 4 components. They are, you must make outreach. I mean, if someone, I'll go backwards. If they say they're outreach ready, yeah, you got to make outreach. If you don't make outreach, nothing's going to happen. Then you have to conduct deeper donor discovery beyond what they provided when they pre-qualified. Then you need to offer them an invitation. This is where I'm really going to get into the roadmap, and they need to accept your invitation and accept your roadmap. Okay, so let's look at it not as a square, or I call it a quadrangle, but let's look at it this way. These are the 4 components of complete qualification. You must check that box and make outreach. Notice that I don't care about the fact that you landed an appointment or had a meeting. That is of no consequence. We don't care. We do care, though, if you properly conducted discovery and learned what you needed to learn. We do care if you offered an invitation to go on a philanthropic journey to the land of wealth sharing with you. And we do need to know if they accepted it, that invitation, meaning they opted in to be in your caseload. Okay, so as I wrote in my book that, well, maybe it'll come out in a year, the process for completely qualifying someone for inclusion in your caseload should focus more on inviting a donor or supporter to work with you on developing a roadmap, a strategy for their philanthropic journey, and less on the ask. There's so much training on these asks. If you do this process right, you never actually have to ask, because the donor will ask themselves, and they'll compel you to move the process forward faster. I promise. They'll get excited. In fact, if you do the invitation right and collaborate on a sound roadmap or giving strategy, the ask will happen organically when they essentially ask themselves to give. So now I'm putting it all together. This is kind of maybe too much, but here you see the pre-qualification, the complete qualification in line with the donor journey, their hero journey to gain a victory. All right, so the invitation, let's talk about that. You want to invite people to accept a roadmap which you'll prepare for them. You're going to need a blank sheet of paper first to develop your invitation script. And you have to get really good at it because you don't want to fumble your invitation when you're in front of a donor. You want to get really good at mastering how do you invite someone to go on a philanthropic journey with you. So now I'm going to read you one. I know this is a lot, but stay with me on this. And these are my words, not yours. Yours you're going to create. But pretend there's a donor in front of me and I say, her name's Julie. Julie, I'd like to offer you an invitation to explore how you can gain value from working with me on a roadmap for deeper exploration and understanding. So you can learn more about our capabilities, initiatives, or programs, along with how they might fit with your timing, desires, and interests. You don't have to accept my roadmap, Julie. But if you do, I promise I'll never pressure you to make a decision to give. It's not about that. But once people accept my invitation and allow me to develop a roadmap on their behalf, most ask me to make revisions to it. That's usually the next step. Usually it's revolving around timing, especially like you mentioned that you're going to be away all summer. So my roadmap, I'll probably make space over the summer so you're not worrying about this at that time. And that's fine. You're always in control, Julie. This is your process. This is your journey. This will be your roadmap and your path for discovery in line with your timing. The roadmap will help you reflect on your motivations, including why you care, how or whether your values align with ours, and we'll discover that together, and how you might like to gain a sense of belonging with us or find community or help others like you. Here's an example I developed for others. And this is a fake one. I'm going to show you a real one in just a second. But you'll notice that I put a title on it that's welcoming. I put their names on it and how I got introduced. Again, this is a fake one. I'm going to show you a real one from a fundraiser in a second. You recount in briefly their story so far. You recount the motivations that you understand so far, even if you only have them from the survey from our system, and the interests that they described, either in the survey or through other pre-qualifying cultivation meetings. And then you may or may not put a gift amount in there. I usually recommend you put a question mark in this place, unless you already have a good idea of how much they might want to budget for this. And then finally, you put a calendar so that they know when they're going to finish this journey and when they're going to transfer the money. And then any other details, your contact information, a friendly picture, and so on. So now I'm going to show you another one, and then we're going to open this up for discussion. This is from Zach, who's actually an interesting guy. I don't know if he's on the call, but he's at Grove City College, and they've been working with me on developing all this. And Zach is interesting because he's like the lacrosse coach. So he's kind of a major gift officer, but he's really the lacrosse coach, you know. And he's like, well, I want to help raise money. So, okay, we give him the major gift officer title, and I didn't do that, but you know, so here's one, and we took out the last names because this is a real one. But he created this for a couple of donors, and he recounted their story. He included some motivations and interests, and he put a question mark in there because he had no idea how much they really want to spend. He's got his, you know, nice friendly picture. When he graduated, I mean, clearly he cares about the institution, contact information, and then he put out a calendarized process, a roadmap for them to engage with him. Now, since he did this, we all realized, and I tried not to overcoach him, but these are very heavily event oriented and not enough intentionality around the what and the how. So it depends. Now, he felt he knew them enough that that's how they wanted to be treated. But I also look at, I think there should have been maybe one or two things like, well, do you want to meet the coaches of the other teams because you're thinking about doing this and that? What are the deeper exploration regarding the what and more intentionality around the what or the how? Like it could have said in September, maybe we should get together with your financial advisors, your wealth advisors, and such, and gain their insights for tax purposes so you can give wisely. Nevertheless, it's pretty darn good because he said they accepted it on the spot. First of all, actually, I should back up. When he made the invitation, which I showed you guys the invitation a second ago, when he made this invitation, they got so excited. First of all the pressure of being ambushed dropped out. They were like, oh, that's refreshing. You're not going to ask me for money today? You're going to ask me, you're inviting me to just accept a roadmap? So all the pressure dissipated. They ended up having a better meeting and they got excited and said, when can you get that to me? And he was like, oh, I didn't expect that. I guess like next Tuesday. It's like, wow, I didn't expect you're going to want that. I mean, it escalates the process. Whereby before he was like, I don't even know when I'm going to solicit them. I'm just going to invite them to a bunch of games otherwise without this roadmap. And then at some point, I'm going to ask them for money when they're least ready, because I'm ready or because my boss told me it's time for me to ask them for money. So the invitation sped up the process. It turned the whole relationship into a collaboration. And then it set the stage for like, when are things really going to happen? When am I going to see a proposal? When am I going to make my decision? I want to do it before Christmas. One other thing you might want to include in this is you might want to show them a roadmap of sorts. And if you've been on other mastermind mixers, we talked about this, where you explain, this is how it works, by the way. I know you don't give every day, but I work with donors every day. And this is pretty much how it works, is that I get to know you better. We offer you an invitation when you're ready to allow me to develop a roadmap for you. And when you accept that, and if you accept that, then we're going to gain alignment with regard to what you might support and how you might support it. And then when that's set, when we feel good and we feel aligned, I'll develop your proposal for giving. You'll review it, you'll refine it, and then we'll finalize your commitment. But especially, I'm going to make sure that you felt that this whole journey was worthwhile. And then at some point in the future, after I make sure it's worthwhile and you got what you wanted, I'm going to gauge interest to see if you might want to do it again, or if you might want to refer others like you to me to gain value from this journey experience. All right, so that's it, folks. I mean, that's how it works. I'm going to turn off the screen because you all have been very patient in listening to this, and we do have time left for a little collaboration as a group. It's a small group, so I hope you feel comfortable enough to share. And I always pick on TJ. I know you're driving, but usually you have good insights and you're not afraid to speak up. But then again, Devin, I know you've been very forthright as well. So I hope you two don't mind. I invite you to please tell me what are your thoughts and so forth.
Absolutely love the roadmap, and I love the invitation, and it's really philanthropic facilitation that they're in the driver's seat. They get to determine the timing and you're offering that invitation. It's absolutely wonderful and so refreshing. And I'm kind of doing it already, and the response is incredibly filled with gratitude and joy. Around like that example that you shared. And one thing I know is, there's so much energy, time, I'd say unconscious training around the ask. It's not a singular event, and it's an ongoing participation, cooperation, collaboration, all the great C words. So well done. Thank you.
Well, that's a good one. I will look for negative feedback as well, criticism, but Devin, what do you think, man? Come on, lay it
Oh,
on me.
start talking. I had to pull. Can you see it? There's your
Oh yeah, there's the book.
there's your book right there. So anyway, I had to go back and refer it because this really does bring together what Russell's been talking about, and I'm reflecting because we've had to go in a little bit of an annual giving mode for a variety of reasons, which is important. Although it's short term and it is transactional, it's not transformational. As we're going out and visiting people after some changes at our organization, my thought has been, yes, we need people to give now to specific effort, but that's not where we're going to end up going, and they need to be included. And some events are being put together to go in and ask people immediately, as opposed to what you've done here gives an opportunity to share that these, calling them, home home and hearth events, are ways. Don't go and asking, but build that relationship. And I was trying to think of a way, because we'll be across the country sometime for the first time people meeting our leaders since she got there. And we don't want to jump into an ask, although we need to say we have immediate needs, and we hope you're hearing about that, and we invite you to participate. What I'm most interested in is those first two parts of the pre-qualification. We know they're in the room because we've done some quantitative. We want to get into the qualitative, and are trying to think if there's a way to have that invitation that by being here, we invite to begin a journey with you, and we're asking 4 or 5 of you the same time if this would be of interest, and then we'll have a follow-up after that. So no one's being ambushed, no one's being put on the spot. Everybody's being acknowledged that they love the college, they've invested, time, energy, and things like that. They're hearing where they are because they didn't even know what's going on. So we got to at least do that, meet them halfway, and say, if you're re-energized, if there's things you'd like to know, we would invite an opportunity to begin a personalized journey, because asking 6 people for big gifts at the same time doesn't work. It completely negates what you just had there. Each person has their own hero journey, and we need to invite those opportunities. So this gives a way of taking your schematics with Russell's, James's, hero journey, and saying the numbers are one thing, but it's really the total complete qualification that we've got to get to, and we've got to start nurturing that relationship and go along the pathway that they want to be going along. And I really do appreciate the newest thing, of course, was that whole roadmap you've come up with. And that's fantastic, because I've always kind of recoiled at moves management and all that kind of stuff where it's us defining the move. No, they've got to define it. We may have a need, and we ought to be open and honest that we have some needs, but we're not going to get there unless they somehow internalize this and have a way of sharing what's important to them. So sorry for the long answer, but I love what you're doing.
Correct. I'm just going to shout to the maid that's coming in the room. Can I have 10 minutes, please? We'll see if she comes back, or she'll be cleaning the room while I'm here. I'm over at Denison College, if anyone knows where that is in Ohio.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Michael Eisenberg rebuilt the place. It's amazing what he's done. From Disney. So, okay, yeah, you're Devin, I appreciate what you're saying. So you're going to try and thread the needle,
Yeah.
and you're going to really need to sit down with that blank piece of paper and practice this and write it out, because you need to thread a needle in the invitation by saying, look, we'd really like to help you and create a roadmap, but we also have an immediate need.
Right.
So can we maybe split it and do an immediate need, help us now, and then let's craft this journey.
Yeah, I think many nonprofits can find themselves, sometimes they're doing this because they have an immediate crisis. And there's no sense in ignoring that because you know what? I just kind of think about it. If your ship is sinking, you got to save the ship first. Okay, so let's bail the
Yes.
water, let's patch it. And then you talk about where do you want to go to? I mean, so you got to have your ship and then you set your journey. And if people can see, okay, we got to work together to keep our ship afloat. And now let's set our course. And now we're going to enjoy the great adventure that we always wanted to have. And it doesn't do any good to talk about sailing off to the Galapagos if you've got a hole in your boat, so you've got to have it working and you got to have your direction.
Devin, I really appreciate your predicament, if you will. And I want to tell you that if you would feel comfortable and you want to work with me just to look at what your script, I'm happy to help you because you've really got a challenge here. But I think there's something in the law of reciprocity, meaning that because if you were asking to fill this immediate need without any reciprocity, in other words, the roadmap offer, an invitation, is sort of a reciprocal offer. It's
Right.
like, look, I'm not just asking for money now, and I mean, I am, but I want to offer you something after you do that also. And I think if there's a way to craft it so that people feel like they're not just giving, they're gonna get something too. It's a little bit it's switching it around and putting the cart before the horse, which we don't want to do, but you have this immediate need. I get it. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Anybody else? I don't mean to pressure anybody, Devin, Rick, Greg, Tim, but I do want to give you an audience if you want to share with others.
Hey, Greg, this is Greg.
Hey, Greg.
How are you?
You've been a star student, so I'm kind of curious to hear. You're a superstar student. You took the course.
I did, and I loved every bit of it. I did it over Christmas break. I had time, so it worked out well. And I learned a lot, and I've actually over past couple months have been implementing what I've learned, and it does work. People really enjoyed the fact that you're getting to know them, qualifying them, asking them the correct questions, and walking them along with the journey and inviting them. And they like that. And the fact that you're not just there to ask for a gift right away, which is great. And a lot of them are really shocked by that, actually, which is
It
okay.
changes everything.
And I really like the fact that you added on this calendar, because I think, at least I'm thinking in my own mind, for us anyway, it offers some credibility of who we are and how we do our work too. It shows that we're organized, we know where we want to go, how we do things, and how we can help them achieve their goals and what they want to do in life with philanthropic needs. So it's very interesting to me, that calendar, and I definitely want to try that on some people and see where it takes us. And I was thinking about you, Devin, with the immediate needs, because we have some immediate needs here at the diocese as well. And you brought up a good point. We do need to ask for the immediate needs, because that comes up. And I know it's like you said, Greg, the cart, whatever that term is, the cart before, or whatever that is. I always mess it up. But anyway, I think it'll be important at timeline still, or at calendar still, because even if you do the immediate ask for your immediate need, you could show them the fact of how it works after the fact with stewardship and impact reports and where life is going to take them after the fact, and lead them into that discovery and qualification phase all over again. Because I think all this is cyclical, and which is why it's in a circle that keeps going and going. And sometimes you may think you're in qualification, but someone may want to go right to solicitation. So it goes round and round. But I really enjoyed what Greg is saying. It makes sense, and it really does work. So thanks, Greg. And the course is well worth every penny you pay for it.
Thanks for saying that.
And that's not just a marketing thing for you, Greg. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really been promoting that very much. we'll see. I mean, how many things can I promote, you know, and I don't want to drive everybody crazy, but so look, we're rounding out the top of the hour. We only have a couple more minutes. I do want to allow people, if they want to share anything else, just go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking for another minute and remind you that I really encourage you to please take the survey and let us know. I'm a little baffled. I think I'm providing value in these, but clearly I'm not. If I'm not getting enough people to want to come, time is, it is, everybody's short on time. So yeah, if you have feedback, let me know. Otherwise, thank you all for joining today. It's truly a pleasure. Devin, again, take me up on the offer if you want. The
Okay.
slides, all this will be sent to you, if not today, then in the next day or two.
Great. I'll share it. I appreciate it. Yes, and I will follow up. That'd be wonderful. Thank you. I mean, just what you're doing is great. I mean, taking Russell James's thoughts and putting something that you can do a roadmap with is brilliant and very, very helpful. And I think it does revolutionize what we do. And it's so important for our new gift officers to learn this, because unfortunately they are all seeing the original model and need to see why that doesn't necessarily lead to the results they're hoping for.
So I'll bring about as we close. I'll mention Dr. James, because of course we're in touch. And I said to him, am I warping what you're saying, or am I, is this okay? And he said, look, Greg, I'm just a professor. He's like, sure, I ran a university, I ran capital campaigns, I did fundraising, but I'm just a fundraiser. I'm not an inventor. I'm not an engineer. You take it, and if you can make it better, thank you. So I'm glad that I've been able to take some of that, that instructional, and really bring it into a usable tool and procedure, if you will, that can make everybody's life better. So, all right, that concludes today's Mastermind Mixer. Thank you so much for all this collaboration. I really appreciate your input, and I wish you the best. Thank you.